Welcome to another midweek. How you doing? It's testing week, right for St. John's. So you guys are all like super perky, right?
Yes.
Brains are on high capacity right now. Getting the look right now that that's not true. I'm getting the things are feeling a little mushy right now on side. Not fully aware of where you're at. So. Hey, by the way, I know we've got a couple visitors that kind of popped in, and my name's Jason. I'm the middle school pastor. If you're like, who's that guy up in front? That's what I am. That's what I do. I hang out with people who are 11 to 13 years old, a lot. So, good for you. Woo. You're 14 years? 14 years. Anybody else in the room, you were out living on your own, paying your own bills when he was born? It's a couple of us. Yep. All right, so I don't know about you, but I'm getting ready for summer. Anybody? Yeah? Like, it's like you get past spring break and all of a sudden, like, you're just like, summer. Like, hey, there's this thing. I don't care. It's summer. Right? Hey, we got tests. That's fine. Summer. Like, all I'm cared about is summer. And I'll be honest, I'm getting probably a little too excited about summer, kind of like Olaf, you know what I'm saying? Like getting a little too excited about it. But I think a lot of that is just because, one, it's my favorite time of year as far as the ministry goes, because I don't have to wait until like 3 p.m. to see you people. We can go, we can hang, we can do tons of fun stuff. We've got a lot of fun stuff lined up. Camp, VBS, Shipwreck Island after camp or after VBS. Denver mission trip. Also, we're bringing it back, the summer swim. If you guys have never experienced that, I think only my 8th graders are the only ones who have experienced. We used to call them yo-nights, but I didn't like, yeah. Oh, you were like, what's a summer swim? So literally, it makes more sense, right? It's a youth-only night. Except for there's like more than just that, right? So, all right, so let's just call it what it is. It's summer swim, all right? So we're going to go to somebody's house. We theme it out, by the way. One of my favorites, and I don't know if I'm going to bring it back this year or not, I'm actually thinking about going all 90s and 2000s movies themes for all 4 of them. Yeah, so I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with that. So let's just say there may be, at one of them, we'll say some tetherball championships. We're going to make some handcrafted things with like string and stuff, you know what I'm saying? Anybody else? Might be eating some tots. Yeah, that might be one of them. I'm just saying, it's going to be exciting. But essentially, we theme them out. One of my favorite themes was Battleship. None of y'all remember Battleship. This is a long time ago. We had inflatable rafts. We went to the Collins house. That's who it was. Got in the pool in the air rafts, right? And everybody had a bucket in the raft. And so it was like 2 people in the raft, and there was 4 rafts, and you had to like bump into everybody else's raft, and you had to sink their raft. It was amazing. So Battleship. It was tons of fun. Another good one, we did watermelon wrestling. Where I took a watermelon, covered it in olive oil, threw it into the pool, and then you had to get it and come up with it. Aubrey Nill won. She almost drowned, which is why we've never done it again. But it was hilarious because you would grab it and the whole watermelon was like, and gone. Like, same time we exploded a watermelon, which is still the most viewed video on our YouTube channel of all time. Because in this video, it was over 300 rubber bands on this watermelon. Until finally the pressure made it explode, and then you see this piece of watermelon go poof, slow motion, and it hits Tyler Hainline right in the face. And you just see like, boom, and it's so exciting. So, anyway, summer's going to be amazing. You're going to want to stick around. Okay, that's all I'm saying. All right, so tonight we're going to be back in our Gathering Virtue series. If you weren't here last week, it's a study in the Book of Ruth. I call Ruth the Hallmark movie of the Bible, and so, because it's kind of like a love story. And I thought I did a pretty good job, like, doing my hack, spoofy job of the stereotypical Hallmark movie. Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, just imagine it's in a wheat field. She's probably from the city. He's probably some redneck guy. They hate each other's guts, but of course they fall in love, right? Yeah, so this is the Hallmark movie. All right, so let me give you some background, okay? So previously in Gathering Virtue. Here we go. All right, ready? Super cringy title, I know. All right, so there's this woman Opening scene. She's at a funeral. Funeral is for her husband. Her brother-in-law has also died. Her father has also died. Maybe it's some kind of cataclysmic thing, and they all kind of died within a few, the brothers would have died within a few days, possibly, of each other. And so now there's just mother-in-law. By the way, she's a foreign mother-in-law who probably doesn't speak your language very well in a very foreign context. And so she's the crazy mother-in-law that you may not get along with very well because she's crazy. And then you got a sister-in-law, and that's it. And that's the opening scene of Ruth. Then, other sister-in-law named Orpah. Yeah, that's right. Orpah breaks away. All right. Hang on. All right. I'm super ADD tonight. Okay, anybody else? You feeling the ADD? All right, mushy brains, remember? All right, so ADD. Okay, so do me a favor. Keep side comments to yourself. Okay, and if you have questions, write them down and ask me later. Okay, if you ask me a question now, I'm not going to respond to it because, again, I'm trying to focus. Okay, so moving on. All right, so you've got Ruth, her sister-in-law, and then her crazy mother-in-law named Naomi, who's from another country, another region, speaks a different language possibly, or has a really thick accent in your language, and everything's all weird. And of course, your husband, who was her son, is dead. So really, you don't have any connection. Because the covenant, by the way, in case you're wondering how this really works, the marriage covenant is until what? Death, right? And so actually when one of you dies, then the covenant is actually over. A covenant is like a contract. Remember what I said about questions? So, there's no family left. Naomi is essentially all alone in a country where she does not fit in. One daughter-in-law named Orpah decides she's not going to stick and bugs out and leaves Naomi and Ruth, which is actually what Naomi wanted them to do because Naomi was super bitter, super angry at God and blaming everybody else. And a lot of times when you're angry and you don't really know who to be angry at, you blame God but then take it out on everybody else. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe it's something you did, maybe it's something that just happened to you, it's circumstances, like someone did not do it to you, but it just happened. And so you want to be angry at God, but because you can't do anything to hurt God, you hurt everybody else around you. And so that's what Naomi did. She attacked Ruth, she attacked Orpah, and finally Orpah's like, I'm out. I can't take this anymore. But then it says Ruth clung to her. Ruth would not leave her. Why? It's because Truth had left her family and her gods to marry into this family. Think about this for a second. She was a Moabite. Moabite was a pagan culture with pagan gods that did really crazy stuff. We talked about it a little bit last week, okay? Not good stuff. It wasn't like romanticized, like kind of Moana, okay, where it's like all good stories, but really these people were crazies and they were cannibals and they ate others, okay? That's Moana, okay? Just so you know. Crazy stuff like that. Ruth left all of that to marry into this family and essentially had to turn her back on her family to do so. So now she has the choice. Do I turn my back on my new family and go back? And she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. So she decides to go with Naomi from Moab to Bethlehem, which is about 50 miles. It's really rough terrain, a lot of hills, a lot of mountains, a lot of rocks, and it would have taken them anywhere from about 7 to 10 days of walking. But now you've also got to remember this is two women who are walking. It's very dangerous for two women to walk on the road because there's no street lights, there's no pavement, there's no rest areas. It's actually very common to hear stories, even within the Bible, about how these bandits or robbers, if you want to think about that, would ambush travelers along these roads. Like the Good Samaritan story, that was like an everyday story. That wasn't like a suppose this happened. It's like, you know, hey, one day let's just pick a Samaritan. This happens to Samaritan. And it's just part of the story. It just happens. So finally, these two ladies, they have no weapons. They're making 50 miles. They have no way to defend themselves. They have nowhere to stay because there's no hotels. So they're sleeping maybe in a tent, maybe not. Maybe it's just like on the ground for 7 to 10 days. and possibly could have taken up to 14 days because of the time of year it was. And they get there to Bethlehem in early spring. It's the beginning of the barley harvest. Now, we're going to pick this story up just as they get to Bethlehem, but something I didn't touch last time that I really want to kind of bring up. They arrive in Bethlehem, and Bethlehem was a really small town. Maybe 3,000 at most. Not very big. Just to put that in perspective, according to the 2010 census, you grew up in a zip code, 32259, that was 36,917 people in 2010. So your little Fruit Cove community in 2010 was 12 times the size of this little bitty village. In the 2020 census, I just want to share this with you because it blew my mind. The 32259 zip code is 52,296 people. We essentially doubled in 10 years, which is why these roads are a whole heck of a lot busier, right? Traffic is awful. So, now you don't understand that because, again, you grew up in Fruit Cove, where there's just thousands of people. You may go to the gas station, you bump into someone, you're like, hey, hey, and you never see each other again. Even though you live like maybe a quarter mile from each other. But because there's thousands upon thousands of people, a lot of you guys don't even know each other in this room because one of you goes to Fruit Cove Middle, another one goes to Swiss Point Middle, another one goes to Freedom Crossing, and y'all don't even know each other that much. I grew up in Keystone Heights, Florida. Boom. We have one red light. And in 2000, the last census that occurred while I was in high school, our town population, are you ready for this? 1,349 people. Wow. It was tiny. We have one red light, y'all. Okay, like, if you wanted to have fun, you went to, get ready for it, Food Lion. Do y'all even know what a Food Lion is?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. It's slightly better than a Piggly Wiggly, but not quite as nice as like a Winn-Dixie, okay? So, like, it's on that level. And there was nothing to do in this place, okay? No bowling alleys, no movie theaters, nothing, okay? And here's the thing. How many people do you think were in my graduating class from Keystone Heights High?
200.
Too high? A little too low. 170. My entire high school, by the way, was 7th through 12th. It was a junior, senior high school, 7th grade through 12th grade, was smaller than Bartram High School's graduating class last year. And here's the thing, I knew everybody, and everybody knew me, which is why if I did something stupid, like on the way home from school or something, before I got home, someone had already called Dad and told him. Because everybody knew me, I knew everybody. Everybody lived in this really close-knit community. Why? Because most everybody in Keystone Heights, except for me, was related. Because they'd all been there that long. Now me, I moved into it, so I was not one of the families. Okay, so even now, even though like I was there, my dad has been there for 30 plus years, even now we're still kind of outsiders. Because we didn't grow up in that community. We did, but kind of not. Imagine Naomi going home to her little couple thousand village, and it's all her family. It's cousins, aunties, uncles, or aunties, sorry for you who get upset when I say aunties, okay? Like, imagine that, you roll in, and here comes everybody to see Naomi. Oh, we haven't seen Naomi in forever. And she is bitter and angry at God. Don't you want to be around that person? No, immediately. Like they come up and they're like, how are you doing? She's like, don't even call me Naomi. And she says, call me Mara, which, by the way, means bitterness. Just call me bitterness. Like, ouch. Like, that's really rough. Like, and then she tells this terrible story, and she's miserable, and she's attacking everybody, and she has to go home and tell her family about how much of a failure her family has become. Not only that, her one daughter-in-law who decided to tag along, and she tried to push away, is a Moabite woman. Now, you guys don't quite maybe understand that because you grew up in a different era, but the Israelites had a very strong racist feeling towards the Moabites. Like, they were the lower people. They thought they were better than the Moabites. So not only does she have to admit that all my family's dead, but, oh, by the way, my son married a Moabite. And that would have been like scandal. Like, I can't even imagine what that would have been like for her family. And so now they're like, oh, we didn't realize we were better than you. I mean, that was kind of their mentality towards Ruth. If you look in the first three chapters, no one calls Ruth by name. She's that Moabite woman. They don't even treat her like a person. But here she is coming along because she loves Naomi. She has left her former God. She has made a decision to follow God and is paying a serious penalty for it. I don't have time to really go into a lot of stuff because as I wrote this sermon up, it's like 40 minutes long, so I've got to cut things out. But something I really wanted to kind of bring home for you guys, our community, again, has doubled in the last 10 years. Our church has grown steadily. Schools have grown. Like there's whole schools that weren't there 10 years ago, right? Some of you guys have grown up in this church and you're part of the families. There's others of you that have moved in. What I want to make sure is that we never treat anybody like they're an outsider, like they don't belong. Because again, what we're going to be talking about tonight is not were you born here, were you raised here, any of those things. It's going to be mostly, have you placed your faith in Jesus Christ, like Ruth did? Because if Ruth placed her faith in God, she should become one of them. And it takes a long time. But in the same way, if you've placed your faith in God, you should be one of us, okay? And simply stated, that's all it should take, okay? All right, so let's pick up the story. Chapter 2, verse 1. We're going to go through the very first 13 verses, okay? Then we're going to kind of take a break. All right, chapter 2, verse 1. We all there? The half of us that brought Bibles are there? Okay, so here we go. Now Naomi had a relative of her husband's, a worthy man of the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. Terrible name. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him in whose sight I shall find favor. And she said, go, my daughter. So she set out and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the clan of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and he said to the reapers, the Lord be with you. And they answered, the Lord bless you. Already here, the very first thing we see of Boaz is what? His faith. It's the first important thing that we see coming from Boaz. Then Boaz said to his young man who was in charge of the reapers, whose young woman is this? In other words, is this one of my servants? Like, I don't recognize her, sort of thing. And the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered, she is the young Moabite woman, doesn't even know her name, just knows that she's the Moabite woman, who came back with Naomi, knows Naomi's name, but won't say Ruth's, from the country of Moab. So Moabite twice in one sentence, like, oh, she's the Moabite woman from Moab. Like, she's the trashy girl that we don't want to be around, okay? She said to me, meaning the reaper, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves after the reapers. So she came, and she has continued from early morning until now, except for a short rest. Then Boaz said to Ruth, now listen, my daughter, talking to Ruth, do not glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Let your eyes be on the field that they are reaping and go after them. Have I not charged the young men to not touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the young men have drawn. Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? But Boaz answered her, all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father, your mother, and your native land, and came to a people that you did not know before. The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord God of Israel. I love how they said the Lord's name 4 times in one verse. Anybody else see that? Under whose wing you have come to take refuge. Then she said, I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, for you have comforted me and spoken kindly to your servant, though I am not one of your servants. All right, so again, I want the story to kind of speak for itself, but what I want you to do is understand what's happening in the story. So I have a couple lessons, if you will, like kind of like what's the moral of the story, the principle of the story. I have a couple lessons I want to lift out. So the first one is, I want you to look at Boaz as a mighty man. This is really interesting to me because the word in my translation, ESV, says a worthy man in verse 1. Now, who has a different version than the ESV? What you got, Maddie? What version? NIV. What does it say? Verse 1, 2, 1. Anybody else with an NIV who'd like to help out Maddie? 2:1. Ruth 2:1. What's it say?
Now Naomi had a relative on her side, a man of standing.
A man of standing is how they describe it. Who's got something else? What you got, Thiago?
And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, and a mighty man of wealth.
Ooh, a mighty man of wealth. Now he's a rich man. All right, what you got?
I have CSB. He was a prominent man of noble character.
A prominent man of noble character. There's like 2 words here. And can you hear everybody trying to say it something different? By the way, when you're reading the Bible and you see a word like in the different translations that are like, okay, we think it means this. And somebody else, we think it means this. Somebody else, we think it means this over here. That's whenever they're saying like, this word doesn't generally fit right here. So, this word for him is Gibor Hayil. It means a mighty man or a mighty warrior. Now this is interesting because they're not at war, are they? No. There's no military, there's no armies, nothing's happening. But the other times they use it, this word mighty man is always used in the context of war. So, like in 2 Samuel 23:8, King David is assembling his 300 mighty men. This is not just like anybody in his army. This is like the top dogs in his army, where there's like guys who killed 600 people in one battle. Yeah, like these are not just regular dudes. These are like Avengers. Okay, so like these are the kind of mighty men, and they refer to him as a mighty man. So there's a couple of thoughts here. One is that he was wealthy, which he kind of was, but he kind of wasn't. Like, they don't really describe him as this dude who's just loaded. Also, they don't describe him as someone who had a lot of influence in the gates. He has to go and talk to the elders in the gates later. So he doesn't have like a lot of authority in his little tiny town of Bethlehem. I truly think, because it's in the time of the judges, this dude really is like a mighty man. He really is a warrior, and that's what he was known for. So you've got Boaz, and he's like Avenger level tough. And he comes out, but this is the first thing he says: the Lord be with you. You know, there's this concept about faith, Christianity, and masculinity, and somehow they don't go together. Like going to church is for girls. Going to church is for babies. Going to church and believing in God is for the weak. Apparently not. Apparently not. We've got this man who is a mighty warrior kind of man, and he carries a depth in his faith. Now, I'm going to get into a little bit of a topic that I'm uncomfortable getting into with you guys, okay? So can y'all act a little bit mature for this next few minutes, okay? We're going to talk about dating. And generally, I don't talk to you about dating for a very obvious reason. You're not independent. You don't have money to take a girl on a date. And if he can't drive himself, ladies, the answer's no, okay? Like, if he's like, my mom can take us to the movies, like, no, okay? Like, all right, dating is for men and women. So wait until you are one. Okay, so, all right, but for the 8th graders who are beginning to think that cooties are kind of like Tooth Fairy and Santa, and they're disappearing, let me talk to you a little bit about dating, okay? When it says this is a mighty man, I think the ESV kind of gets the idea where he's saying he's a worthy man. A worthy man of Ruth's attention. A lot of times I see girls pursuing after guys who are not worthy of their attention. Can I just be real? For example, you are more interested in his popularity than his reputation. You are more interested maybe in his wealth than the depth of his character. I mean, some of you really, he could look like his face could look like a donkey's butt, and you'd be like, he's got money, I don't care. Because you're showing really where your priorities are at. Can I suggest, ladies, go find a man who's worthy of your attention, who has a deep faith and deep character. Everything else, don't worry about it. God will take care of that. Because honestly, if he's a man of deep faith and deep character, he knows how to make wise decisions. Right? Seek first the kingdom of God. Let all the other things be added to you. If he loves the Lord, he's going to take care of you. He's going to take care of your family. Because again, the Bible is not so much interested in the way they make you feel as much as the actions and faithfulness towards each other. Because here's the thing, if you're more interested in the way they make you feel, then really you're being selfish and you're more interested in what you can get out of them in the relationship than how they act and how they behave and how they lead. Boaz was a man who was a leader with an incredibly deep character, and he was worthy of her attention. Now, let's go a little bit on the other side. Christian women often aspire to be a woman of character or of virtue, as Proverbs 31 says. Okay? But Proverbs 31:10 also says that a woman of virtue is more valuable than priceless rubies. So, same thing, guys, be living in such a way that you are worthy of a girl's attention because of the depth of your character. But in the same way, ladies, do the same thing. Be a priceless ruby that he has to search for. Do not be so readily available, okay? Because if you're readily available, that means you're inexpensive. You don't need to be that. Instead, truly, biblical courtship, if you will, is much more focused on who you are and how you behave than looking for somebody. Versus our contemporary dating is much more interested in finding the right one. So that was him, the mighty man. But next I want to talk about the mighty woman, okay? So it doesn't actually say that word, a mighty woman, but listen to the description from her. So here we go. Boaz comes out. He's in his field. He's kind of working along. And all of a sudden he sees this lady and he's like, I don't know her. Did I employ her? Am I paying for her? Sort of thing. Like, he's like, who's that? And the reaper's like, oh, that's the Moabite woman who came back with Naomi. Now, immediately, because again, it's a small town, okay? And gossip travels fast in small towns, okay? Boaz knows exactly who this is. He's like, oh. And here's the thing. Naomi is Boaz's family. So he looks at this woman as incredible character who has forsaken her own family, forsaken her gods, so that she could follow the true God back to Israel with Naomi. And he says, this is somebody I want to, kind of follow. Plus, she's loving on my family. So then he says, okay, what's she been doing? She got here early. And by the way, when they say early, they mean dark early, okay? Like not even the sun is coming up. All right, God is still sleeping kind of early, okay? So she gets there early, and then she's only taken a small break. And by the way, the fact that Boaz is out there means it's late in the day. Like the sun is going down. So she's working before sunup, and it's sundown, and she's only taking a small break. In this culture, you don't do that because they live in the Middle East, and it gets really hot during the day. So in the middle of the day, when it's the hottest during the day, everybody takes a break. Not Ruth. She's like, hot nothing. I'm going to keep working. And so she's been busting her rear end. Now, this is really important. In the Bible, they had a welfare system. Do you know what the welfare system is? Okay, so the welfare system in America, anyways, there's a lot of opinions about this, and I'm not going to get into it. I'm just going to explain things, okay? The welfare system in America is if you lose your job, you can then go to this welfare system and say, hey, I lost my job, and I'm going to apply for unemployment. The government then gives you money so you can pay for your bills. That's pretty much it. Like there's probably a little bit more details to it, but that's it. Not biblical welfare system. Biblical welfare system was, okay, you lost your money, you're poor, something like that. Okay, the harvesters are going to harvest the middle of the field. They're going to leave the sides, the edge of the field, for you. So if you want to eat, it's out there. You got to get out there and you got to go harvest it. Now it's free. You don't have to pay for it. That's the cool part. Because wheat, barley, all that was very expensive in this day. But it's free. And they intentionally left it for you to go get it. But if you don't go get it, you don't get it. Simple as that. So that's why the Bible says if you don't work, you don't eat. So you have to go out there. And here's the thing. You guys probably haven't planted much, right? Anybody, farmers? Anybody you do like lots of, not on Facebook, like for real, okay? Like I grew up again, little tiny town. We actually did farming. We had the big combines and stuff like that. The best of the crop is in the middle of the field. The worst of the crop is on the edge of the field because that's where there's more weeds. And the crop is thinner on the edge. Because again, they didn't have like really awesome planters and stuff. They would take a handful of seed and be like, and that was their planting system, okay? So the ones on the edge was the worst of it all. So she has to go out and pick up leftovers. She has to literally pull through the weeds and sort it out. And she is getting after it hard. She is working really, really hard. Couple of lessons from here. Work hard. If you want to have a depth of character, work hard. The supervisor, the thing that he noted most about her is that she has a hard-working attitude. She's a mighty woman. She's killing it out there. Can I just say there's nothing more discouraging and frustrating when I'm trying to work with somebody who's lazy butt. Chill out. She only took a short break. A person of great character is a hard worker. They do everything to the best of their ability. They're not lazy. They don't take shortcuts. And they don't give up when it gets difficult. They do everything, and this is such a good word, with excellence. Why? Because as Colossians, that's not correct. No, wait, that is correct. So Colossians 3:23 that says, do everything, yes. Colossians 3:23, do everything as if unto the Lord. Meaning don't do anything halfway. Don't be like, oh, this is good enough. No, good enough is not good enough for God. Only the best is good enough for God. So everything that you do, work as if you're giving it to the Lord. Jesus even describes people, lazy people, as wicked. Did you even know that? Like lazy people are wicked people, according to Jesus. Here's another good lesson about this mighty woman. She cares for her family. Now, Naomi's not technically her family, but she is by marriage. And because of that relationship, taking care of Boaz's family impressed Boaz. Like, as a parent, I get this. You guys may not quite get this, but when someone comes along and takes care of my kids for me and just, like, loves all my kids, I'm like, you're cool. Like, I really appreciate you for caring on my kids, for caring for my family. In the same way, Ruth was compassionate, hardworking, and she did things with excellence. So how did he respond? He says, hey, don't go to any other fields. You don't need to. I got you covered. You stay right here in my field. You stay near my young men. I've told them to protect you. You stay with my young ladies. I've told them to treat you as one of them. You stay with me. Why? Because Boaz was so impressed with her character. So now let's pick up the story back in verse 14, and we're going to finish out the chapter. Okay? At mealtime, Boaz said to her, meaning Ruth, come here and eat some bread and dip your morsel in the wine. So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed to her roasted grain, and she ate until she was satisfied and had some left over. He wasn't even stingy with his food. Again, by the way, okay, I know I'm supposed to keep reading, but this is hard. You are the lowest of the low Israelite if you let a Moabite sit at your table and eat with you. You are a disgusting person that you would let someone like a Moabite eat at your table. And here you go, you see Boaz, yet again, saying, hey, you come in, you're one of us. You belong. You've taken care of my family. You have a faith in God. You belong. That's really how we should treat people like that. All right, sorry. Off my tangent, we're going back. All right. When she rose to glean, Boaz instructed, we're in 15, verse 15. When she rose to glean, Boaz instructed his young men, saying, let her glean among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. And also pull out some of the bundles for her and leave it for her to glean, and do not rebuke her. So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. That's a lot, by the way. And she took it up and went into the city. Her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She also brought out and gave her what food she had left over after being satisfied. And her mother-in-law said to her, "Where did you glean today?" Like, this is a lot. Where did this come from? "And where have you worked? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, "The man's name with whom I work today is Boaz." And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "May he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead." Naomi also said to her, here's some foreshadowing, "The man is a close relative of ours and one of our redeemers." And Ruth the Moabite said, "Besides, he said to me, 'You shall keep close to my young men until they have finished all my harvest.'" And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, lest in another field you be assaulted." Because again, she's a Moabite. Everyone hates her. So here she is, this defiled person getting protection. So she kept close to the young women of Boaz, gleaning until the end of the barley and wheat harvests. And she lived with her mother-in-law. All right, so this lets you know, by the way, end of barley, end of wheat harvest is about 2 months from the beginning when she gets there. So Boaz has been watching her for about 2 months. So last week we talked about how Ruth found a new life, faith in God. Tonight we're going to talk about a consistent life. Ruth was the same, working hard with extreme character for a long period of time, every day in front of the same people. This is a great test that Boaz is putting under her, because here's the thing. He knows that she works hard, but he really wants to know, okay, how deep is this character? Because here's a great statement if you're writing notes down. You don't have great character if you only have great character sometimes. Let me say it again. You don't have great character if you only have great character sometimes. I came up with that myself. I feel pretty good. So character is built by living in a way that people can trust you. And trust is earned slowly and lost quickly. You're only ever one step away from being stupid, okay? You can't be a good person with good character only some of the time, or in public and not in private. Boaz wanted to know what kind of woman she is, so here's what he does. He sets up this test. He says, hey, leave the good stuff behind for Ruth. Because remember what I said, the best of the harvest is from the middle of the field, and like the leftovers are on the edge of the field. He says, hey, do this, because I've told her to. Put the good stuff, just like leave it in the middle of the field. So that when you leave, Ruth's going to be like, okay, I guess this is for me. On top of that, he says, not even that, get the sheaves that you've already bundled and leave them for her too. In other words, do a bunch of work for her and just give it away to her. He says, I want to see what's going to happen. Why? Because she gets an ephah of barley flour. So you guys know that's like a couple of 50-pound bags, okay? That's a lot. So here's what she could have done, because she goes back into the city. She could have gone back into the city, gone to the market, and traded it, and made a lot of money, kept it for herself, and then just taken home the normal amount that she would have gotten and told Naomi, see, here's my normal amount today. She could have kept all that for herself. Instead, she went straight home to Naomi and said, look at all this, and laid it all out. She shared everything. Why? Because, again, she's there because she loves Naomi. She's not there for herself. Boaz, this is important, especially for those of you who are like listening to the whole dating portion. He saw her character, but he wanted to test her. That's really important. He wanted to know, is this girl really all that she appears to be? Also, this is kind of smart on him. by giving her all these favors. He's also like doing the whole like wink wink, like, hey, I like you. Like, yeah, here, like he didn't do that for all his other ladies. There's a bunch of other young men and young women who are picking stuff, right? They're picking up barley, they're picking up wheat, and he's like, hey, leave extra for Ruth. I didn't say anybody else's name. I said Ruth. Okay, why? Because he wants Ruth to be like, oh, wow, that's nice, right? Like, so he wants her to know, hey, I like you. I like you. But at the same time, I'm testing you because I want to know what's your real character. Because at this point now, Naomi's no longer poor. She's not having to go and depend on Ruth to get flour every day. She has a stockpile of it. Probably enough to last her for the next year until the next harvest. That's how much she got. Then, here's some real foreshadowing. She tells Naomi where did it come from. She's like, Boaz, the mighty man. And Naomi immediately like, oh. Apparently for the last 2 months, she's not known where this has been coming from. But all of a sudden, Naomi's like, from Boaz. Because she's like, not only is Boaz a mighty man, he's a single mighty man, okay? And so she's like, listen here, okay? He's a single mighty man, and then he is what's called a redeemer. We're going to get into this topic a lot more in chapters 3 and chapter 4. A redeemer in this culture was totally different than what we treat our widows with. So again, if a woman were to lose her husband and they have no heir, she can't own property. In this culture, she was the property, okay? So she couldn't own the land, and so the land just kind of went away, unless another male who was of close descent to the guy who died went and married the widow. Now, a lot of times they wouldn't do that. Because one, you couldn't be married to do that, okay? Like, you had to be single in order to do that. So we're actually going to see where there's this other guy who comes next chapter. He gets the chance to do it, and he's like, no, thank you. Because, again, I'm already married. I don't need to do that. And then the second thing is, she's a Moabite. Naomi is kind of like bordering on cultural crazy here. In her culture, where it is extremely racist towards Moabites, Naomi is saying, oh, he's a kinsman redeemer of us. And here's the thing, she's a Moabite. Not really. Most everybody else would be completely repulsed at the idea of marrying a Moabite. But here we go. We got Boaz, who's a mighty man, has strong faith, excellent character, and he's flirting with Ruth. By the way, remember how I said, have you noticed, no one uses Ruth's name? Like, not until late in chapter 3, I think it is. Is that right? Sorry, chapter 4. Boaz, the first one to say her name. I know, that's a good Hallmark movie, right? I'm just telling you, it's good. You see, Boaz had a heart like God. In 1 Samuel 16:7, we read that, for the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. Can I just say, God doesn't care what color you are or what ethnic background you come from? Because he's not looking on the outside. He's looking at your heart. He wants to see where your faith lies. For both of them, their character began in this deep faith in God. They placed their faith in him, and then out of that faith overflowed their character. Can I just say, Christians should have the most excellent character of anyone in the world. That's not always true, by the way, and it makes me furious. Because here we are, the representatives of God, in whom there is no sin, there is no flaw, and we are his representatives to others. And yet, sometimes it's like we're not even trying to have that kind of character. Now, you may have missed it. Did anybody hear where Boaz said to her, I see your faith? Or did we miss that? Go back to 2, verse 12. He says to her, the Lord, that's Yahweh, repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. In other words, there's something about this Moabite woman named Ruth that automatically Boaz says she believes in God. She has faith in God, like I have faith in God. There should be something about your life that lets everybody know you're a Christian.